I need you to cheer me up today, man. James Dolan has announced that he is not selling the Knicks.
Well, when I was a kid, y'all cheered yourselves up real easy. All you needed was any glimmer of hope and you were there. Leon Rose represents Joel Embiid and Karl Anthony Towns. They gonna play for the Knicks. That's what y'all used to do.
Yeah, and maybe that would have worked.
Do it! Try it! Try it!
I just need him to bring him back. Just bring him back. Bring him back from China. Bring him back. Jeremy Lin, just do it, man. You know this is what we need.
Let's start with the Sixers.
Ugh.
In fact, let's let Charles Barkley start this off. Here's Chuck before Philly's 121-109 loss in Milwaukee.
I think they are the softest, mentally weakest team that had a bunch of talent. They are the Cleveland Browns of the NBA.
Damn.
They got a lot of talent.
The Browns?
And they talk the talk, and that's it. They just talk, Ernie. They are weak mentally and physically.
Right. And that was before Joel Embiid shot 6 for 26 from the floor, before the Sixers lost their 4th game in a row and their 9th consecutive loss to a team with a winning record. Pablo, the Sixers put up this performance a day after a players-only meeting. Might Charles be right? Your team is soft.
I have to reject this description. In that video, Joel Embiid was wearing a cast, right? He tore his thumb ligament. He's playing through it. The guy dislocated his finger last month, stayed in the game. This is a description that speaks to character, deep within the soul stuff. And what we really do when we call people soft, Bo, or mentally weak, we play the results. This is a team that's losing, and therefore they are this way. But that does not mean that they have always been this way, or that they will be this way if they make a good playoff run.
Why are they so bad on the road? Right? Because the clearest indication of the softness of this team is that they're 22-2 at home. And what are they on the road? Is it 9-19?
They're
right?
bad.
Right. Okay. So why is that the case? Some people are mentally weak. We have to acknowledge that that's a characteristic that can exist within people. If we can acknowledge some are strong, some have to be weak. And nothing indicates mental strength about the way that this team plays. Nothing indicates strength about the way when they fall apart. And this is a game where they fell apart. And you see them not going hard. Come on, man. You got to have some acknowledgement that this is not the most resolute bunch of dudes.
It is really worrisome that they are terrible on the road. It is weird that they are as good as I thought they would be at home. But if they are going to make a run, Bomain, the question we have to ask ourselves is, why aren't they winning? And to me, the answer to that question is roster construction. It's the fact that Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons are surrounded by really misfit parts. And so the reason why this team looks mentally weak and soft, it's because the guys around them are not good fits with them.
Well, I'm sure that's part of it. I just don't know why you dismiss the idea of softness entirely just because the roster also happens to be poorly constructed. Is that the only team that's got poor roster construction? Not all of them are fighting directly in front of us and then feel like they need to have a meeting about it. Now, look, I always laugh about the idea of the vaunted players-only meeting. It normally has an effect that kicks in but doesn't last very long. These dudes had it out with each other yesterday and got the brakes beat off them the next night and looked like they did the next night. So they went and they cleared the air and did all of those things, and then they went out there and still looked like they did. And you really going to just totally dismiss the idea that maybe, just maybe, these guys are a little bit soft?
The behavior, especially as it relates to their egos and the public airing of grievances, which feels perpetual, that stuff is soft. But in terms of them as players on a basketball floor, that's where I'm like, can we stop doing the soul identifying magnifying glass thing?
But the people that you're talking about being soft the day before are the ones who play in the basketball game.
Up next are the Rockets, who didn't use a player taller than 6'7", and they beat the Lakers 121-111 anyway. It did not look promising at first. Houston sent out James Harden for the jump ball, and this shrunken lineup then had to go face Anthony Davis. But Houston shot 45% from three, including two big ones late by the newly added Robert Covington, all of which opened up the lane for one Russell Westbrook, who went absolutely off for 41, 8, and 5. Now, after the game, Daryl Morey, the GM, said his team feels very comfortable we can beat the Lakers. So, Bo, is this big win for this small ball team a sign of things to come in Houston?
Does he mean beat the Lakers in a playoff series? Right? I mean, you beat the Lakers in a game, and that's cool. And who knows? Maybe you're going to shoot 45% all the time. Maybe Russell Westbrook's going to go for 40 all the time. Now, on the flip side for them, James Harden did not play especially well, so maybe you can point toward that. But this is not something that I think is sustainable. If this was something that were sustainable, a lot more teams would try it because it's a lot easier to find guys who can play basketball who are 6'5" than it is to find guys who can play basketball who are 7 feet tall. So, no, I think this was good, and I think Russ was on fire last night, and I think that when they lose in the first round of the playoffs, at least they had fun on the way.
I think the ceiling on this team is below the NBA Finals. It's probably below the Western Conference Finals, but in terms of is this how to raise the ceiling of this team more than any other solution that they have right now, it absolutely is. And I love how weird this is. I love how extreme the Mike D'Antoni experiment is finally getting, because what they all collectively realize is that their salvation is not in unlocking James Harden. It's in unlocking that guy. It's in unlocking Russell Westbrook, who is no longer shooting threes. And so the question of well, where's the big man here? On offense, the big man is Russell Westbrook. All he does is attack the paint, and all he does, he took, I believe, a lot of shots in the paint, scored 20 points, took Anthony Davis one-on-one at several points in this game. That, to me, is the revelation. Russell Westbrook is not finished.
How long you think that James Harden's going to be over there in the corner watching Russell Westbrook take all these shots? How long do we think that part of this is going to be able to keep up? Because that is the best that I've seen Russell Westbrook look literally in years, right?
Yes.
He looked amazing. I just don't see this as a way to win a 7-game series against anybody in the NBA. And now to another Pablo Torre favorite, Jimmy Garoppolo. Woo. At a press conference, Niners coach Kyle Shanahan was asked about his quarterback, who's taken some flack since the Super Bowl. Here's Shanahan with his cape blowing in the wind.
I think Jimmy's one of the main reasons we got to the Super Bowl. I think he overcame a lot. This was his first year in his career going through an entire NFL season. He still doesn't have as many starts and stuff as Baker Mayfield. I think he had a hell of a first year, truly playing the position, especially coming off an ACL. Where you have to fight through that a ton as a quarterback, where your rhythm and everything is not there at the beginning of the year. I can't tell you how much I loved coaching the guy as a player and as a person this year.
Pablo, Shanahan seems all in on Garoppolo, even though the team could move on from him without much cost. Are you convinced?
I am convinced, and it's because Kyle Shanahan in that clip was not just caping for Jimmy Garoppolo, he was caping for himself. What he did with Jimmy Garoppolo is a testament not just to Jimmy G being better than some people think. It's a testament to how good Kyle Shanahan is at building a system around him. So we can debate forever, and we kind of have, how good really is Jimmy G as an isolated quantity. But you give him Kyle Shanahan, and he does what he did this past year in his first season as a starter, Bomani. Have a top 10 season among quarterbacks.
Hold on. He does that, or he did it, right? Like, you're assuming that every time you drop Jimmy Garoppolo out here that you're going to get a top 10 first season quarterback performance by your metrics. So he does that, or he did it. On one level, and this is it gets me about Garoppolo that the whole argument is, well, he's only had but X starts, right?
Yes.
He's 28 years old. You only get but so much of a ceiling to grow. This is not just an absolute thing based upon how many games it is that you have played. At some point, as you get older, you're not going to get much better. So with Jameis Winston, for example, it becomes interesting because when he's 25 now, I want to say, right? Okay, in theory, he's not 28 yet. He's got all this room to grow and get better. But you don't think that, right? So, I don't think starts are absolute. I don't think age is absolute. But I think the idea that just because he hasn't started a lot of games at age 28 means that the ceiling is still there versus a guy like Baker Mayfield who's 24 years old. Come on, man, that's silly.
But those two things, while they both have something to do with how a quarterback's potential looks, one of them has to do with actual performance. The other one has to do with, hypothetically, what happens as they age. So for me, the sample that we have with Jimmy G is super promising, especially when you look at stats like efficiency and pass protection.
Right, but how much of that is the system, right?
No,
but that's an important part, because at some point, no matter who you are as a quarterback, the system can only protect you but so long. Who you are is going to come into play. And that's what happened in the Super Bowl. And that's why I use aggregated numbers to talk about how good Jimmy Garoppolo misses the point. The panic that is within him when the pressure comes, that ain't going away, and that's borderline impossible to win with. Coming up next, did Giannis throw shade at James Harden? Oh, yeah, we messy. Very.
How do you judge someone? Not by what they say, by what they do. We're a nation of doers. What's Mike Bloomberg about? Doing things. A middle-class kid worked his way through college, an entrepreneur. Bloomberg built a global news and information business from scratch. Mayor of a diverse, progressive city, Mike Bloomberg rebuilt after 9/11. creating nearly 500,000 jobs, improving healthcare and public schools. Now he's running for president, and Mike's the change we need. From chaos to steady leadership, from lies to someone who believes in facts and data, from divisiveness to someone who builds teams, nurtures good ideas, and holds himself accountable for results. Mike Bloomberg knows how to lead, to build, to deliver, to do. He'll win and unite this country. Mike will get things done.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, candidate for president, and I approve this message because we need to deliver on the promise of the American dream. Paid for by Mike Bloomberg 2020.
An interesting creature inhabits the flat, arid plains of many an automobile dashboard. The bobblehead. It's most agreeable and will nod along to anything, despite having no brain function. But when the bobblehead hears how Geico not only saves people money, but also gives them access to licensed agents 24/7 online and over the phone, he'll nod even more vigorously because he knows you should switch. Because yes, switching to Geico is a no-brainer. Easy, bobblehead, easy. You're going to get whiplash.
Greetings, Earthlings. High Noon is beamed to you from above the Heineken River deck at Pier 17.
Get in here, y'all. There we go. Lots of noise for no reason. First time, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Freaky Greeky and LeBron drafted all-star teams last night, and here's what happened when Giannis had to choose between James Harden, Kemba Walker, and Trae Young. Let's watch.
I'm between Kemba and Trae Young.
Wait, you don't want the dribbler?
I want somebody that's going to pass the ball. That's what I want. So I'm going to go with crossover killer, step back master, Kemba Walker.
Kemba Walker, all right.
Well, all right. You in on Giannis' explanation for drafting Kemba over Harden?
I am all the way in on this. If I was an all-star captain, you know what I would do. I would draft all the players from Asia, and then I would get some guys who I've had fun with. That's what Giannis did. He took Joel Embiid and Pascal Siakam, and then he got a guy who will throw him lobs as opposed to maybe do the opposite.
I don't know why he thinks anybody in the All-Star game is going to throw him any passes, right? That's the one thing about it. I'm not going to take James Harden because he's not going to pass to me. Son, that's not what anybody came here to do, right? There ain't nobody getting on SportsCenter for throwing a lob. They getting on there for catching it.
Next topic, Todd Gurley. Coach Sean McVay plans to meet with Gurley before next year's set of contract guarantees, and NFL Network's Ian Rappaport says it would cost more than $10 million to cut Gurley before June, while a trade is a possibility. So you win on the Rams moving on from Gurley.
I mean, I suppose it's possible. I wish I knew more about why last season played out the way that it did. He still got into double-digit touchdowns, though he was down below 4 yards a carry. But it's not like the other running backs for the Rams were out there killing it either. I don't have a great answer for how much the failures of their running game were collective.
Yeah, I am out on Todd Gurley going anywhere, and it's not because Todd Gurley is a bad player. He is on a terrible contract and also maybe has arthritis in one of his knees. That's why we're here. The person who might be most worried about all of this is probably like Derrick Henry, a free agent running back right now who is currently going to get the glare that all of the Rams are looking at with Todd Gurley because, yeah, that's not going to make much monetary sense.
Right up next, Duke and UNC. Number 7 ranked Blue Devils playing Chapel Hill tomorrow night against UNC. You in on the game tomorrow?
I am out on the game because all I've heard this year, Bo, is how disappointed these coaches have been with these teams. Coach K says his Duke team is good but not great. Meanwhile, Roy Williams says his UNC team is the least gifted he's had in his time here. So yeah, sell me on this if you want me to watch it, and they haven't.
I'm doing this because I do it all the time. This is basically one of those, are you a fan of this kind of thing, right? I lived there for 10 years, so I'm definitely in on it, so I'll watch. But I'll tell you this. For UNC fans, the idea of Duke coming in and marching over you in that dome, man, I hope UNC fans went and bought tickets because there's the possibility of the misery of it being real dark blue in there.
Now to Jackson Hayes. Hayes recently went on social media to complain about not being selected for the Rising Stars game, but he unleashed this dunk last night.
Wells will take it. Will be points on the turnover. JJ lines it up.
Bo, are you in on Hayes being right about all of this after seeing him do this?
I mean, we don't need to attach this to anything else. Let's just enjoy Sideshow Bob doing his thing. And it's okay to call him Sideshow Bob because the dude got an iced-out Sideshow Bob piece that he wore to the draft. I was mad that he said it before I had the chance to.
I am in on Jackson Hayes being involved somewhere in All-Star Weekend. I have to say, if I could do that, and it's the full extension from a 7-footer that makes this so wild. Usually I'm not interested in watching 7-footers dunk unless they do that. If I could do that, man, I'd think it was a deep state conspiracy that I wasn't in the All-Star game too.
And finally, Tyler Beard, the high schooler who's committed to Georgetown, put on a show during his senior night, including this. Oh, my homeboy Wendell went to that school.